I remember I attempted to say something and I was told to keep my mouth shut. You've been screwed. You drank the Kool-Aid and you were about to get wiped out. So I wish I had good news, but for my generation, a boomer generation, we're in serious trouble. And so I said, the good news and bad news about money. Hopefully we'll have some good news for you today. But if you're a boomer or your parents are boomers and they're counting on that pension, as they say in Hawaii, it's aloha. Your pension has been stolen. And that's not a mistake. And we're calling it in this book, Who Stole My Pension? Because all across the U.S. and the world, pensions are being stolen. That's what happens when you have no financial education in school. You hear that, school teachers? Because your pensions, maybe how would you feel if you're like my poor dad and it disappears when you're like 70 years old? And the stock market crash and your 401k turns into 101k. Do you know what I mean? Think about that, because that's the future we face right now. So you might be in serious trouble. So pay attention to what we have to say. And that's why the repo market collapsed long before the 2008 went down, because the repo market is where you get the collateral. What's real, what's fake. And I saw the repo market collapsing and went, oh my God. And just to prove I'm not, Ted and I are not just blowing smoke here. This is my book here. It's called Rich Dad's Prophecy. And this was written about the same time, 2013. And I said, why the biggest stock market crash in history is still coming. So this was after 2008, and how you can prepare yourself and profit from it. Well, the thing is, in history is still coming, needs to be said, is now here. And it is today. And you watch what's going to happen. They're predicting the biggest crashes, not only in the stock market, but also real estate, gold, silver, everything's going to come down. This is the thing that's a little frightening for my generation, is because we're also sold that big bill of goods. Your house is your biggest asset. Now, the problem with the real estate market crashing, not only is it because a lot of it's debt or credit, that when real estate goes down, it's like a sinkhole. And when real estate goes down, not like so much the stock market, but when real estate goes down, other businesses go with it. And all these guys like, carpenters, people who fix the houses, people sell insurance, car dealerships, it's a sinkhole. And so as a real estate guy, when people come up to me and say, I took your advice on buying real estate. I'm not Catholic, but I take laps around the rosary bead and I'll pray for you tonight, because the crash is here today. This market crash is accelerating. So those with 401ks are going to go to 101ks. And if your pension's been looted, the stock market also affects most pensions. Is that correct, Ted?
Absolutely. There is this notion that your pension has been promised to you. That's just not so. That promise is worth whatever, the words. The person who's promised you that pension will later tell you they never meant to promise it. It really wasn't a promise. We didn't really mean promise. So it's not even worth the word. But the first thing people need to understand, because they always come to me and say, Ted, how can they do this? They promised me. For 30 years, I worked for the Screen Actors Guild. For 30 years, I worked for the Ohio State Teachers. And then at age 75, they tell me my promised retirement security is an illusion. So that's the first thing to understand. The second thing, and to your point, is pretty much all these government pensions around the country have a June 30th fiscal year end. So we are now in the last, since June 30th, we have begun to hear their performance for the last year. And it's terrible.
Yeah,
and as terrible as it is, it's actually worse. But we're hearing this everywhere from Norway to California. Pension funds across the world are disclosing historic losses, the deepest losses since the 2008 meltdown.
So Ted, could you give us a story of one pension you worked on?
Yeah, well, I've done over $1 trillion in forensic investigations of pension funds. So I'm the only one who's ever done these investigations. And the first one I did was, frankly, back in 2013. The first public one I did was in Rhode Island, where our current Biden Secretary of Commerce, this investment whiz gal, known Gina Raimondo, was the state treasurer.
And she works for the Biden administration now with Pete Buttigieg and all those characters, right?
Yeah, or Wall Street, whoever. You can say she works for whoever she works. I don't know who's exactly paying her salary.
I feel so much better.
Yeah. But here you've got a woman who has a dismal business record. This woman has never done anything successfully in the business world. She's been successfully elected as a politician, state treasurer, state governor, and now she's commerce secretary. But this is a person who I used to say in Rhode Island, they should pay to go away. Pay her money, pay her $1 million to just leave the state, because it would be the best money ever spent. So what I did in the investigation in Rhode Island in 2013 was to show that Gina Raimondo had loaded up the pension fund on very secretive hedge fund and private equity investments. So she ushered in an era of secrecy. Public pensions in Rhode Island and around the country had never been secret in the past. They're supposed to be the most transparent of all pensions in the world. And their state Freedom of Information Act laws in every state, they're supposed to ensure that. Well, she came in and said all of the investment contracts, all the investment dealings for the Rhode Island pension fund will henceforth be secret. And so what she was doing was gambling big on hedge funds. And I said in 2013, this is going to end very badly. And within a few years, she'd racked up losses of nearly $1 billion. This is an $8 billion pension fund. So how does an $8 billion pension fund earn back that billion that she lost? Well, there's only one way to get it back, and that's really to go to the taxpayers. I've done all these trillions of investigations of pension funds, Ohio, North Carolina, Rhode Island, Florida, around the country. And in looking at all of these huge investment funds, I found a lot of illegal activity. And that was the more profitable side of my work, is as a reporting whistleblower wrongdoing to the SEC and the other federal regulators. So I won the largest whistleblower awards in history a few years ago, $78 million, for reporting this wrongdoing I was seeing in pensions all over the country. Because as we point out in our book, Who Stole My Pension, America is the leading financial innovator. And when I say that, we create toxic financial products that we distribute worldwide. Hedge funds, private equity funds, venture funds, all of that stuff began in America. And then we exported it. Currently, we're exporting it to Australia, Japan, and many of these pensions are being told that these are proven investments that have been sold in the US for 10, 15 years. Well, that's not true. Recently, the faults in these toxic products have become increasingly apparent. True, they've been sold in the US for the last 15 years, but in the last 5 years, the fact that these investments are terrible the chorus is growing, but that's the very moment when Wall Street starts selling the same crap overseas.
Yeah, if we can take a walk down memory lane, you started in 2013, but the 2008 crash, they call it the subprime mortgage crash and all that. That was, creative financing, mortgage-backed securities, collateralized debt obligation, they call them derivatives. And today the derivative market is not in the trillions, it's in the quadrillions. And when this baby goes off, it's going to be louder than a thermonuclear device going off all over the world. And
if you remember back in 2008, one of the shocking revelations was there were all these mortgage-backed securities.
Right.
And lo and behold, they discovered the banks didn't actually own the property, the mortgages. They hadn't done the paperwork. They were selling securities backed by investments they didn't own. I don't know what you call that. I think it's called fraud, but
that's a pretty strong term.
Yeah, the paperwork just wasn't there.